Hey everybody, Questwise here, and again, today is sort of like let's play with live video, see how that works. I'm trying to branch out the channel a little bit, and so I'm trying out this live thing. I posted a video earlier, a review of a game called Beyond the Black Sea, and I used a website called Restream. Not really sure if I was fond of that. May re-record that video. Today I'm using, or right now, and I feel like the quality of this is a little better. I'm using my phone, and I'm just using the YouTube app, and I'm using the sort of live option to record. So hopefully this sounds good. Hopefully this looks good. If you like the live option, again, like I'm just branching out in the channel a little bit. If you like this live version of reviews or just chats, let me know in the comments down below, and I will do more or less of them. Feel free to chat with me as well throughout the video. Today's going to be this video is going to be not so much a review as it's going to be sort of an homage to the people who got us into the role playing hobby. I'm also in a different setting, if you can't tell. I'm in sort of the nerd corner of my living room. I just wanted to try out a different location instead of in the studio with the bookshelves. Um, the inspiration for this video came from a viewer and a Facebook friend, and we started to talk about people who really influenced us into the role playing hobby. The things that brought us into the hobby and to where we're at today. So it was a great conversation, and it was one of those conversations where it was sad. It took the loss of his friend, who was a very big Palladium Books Rifts fan, who had introduced him to the game, and he had gotten this friend had gotten out of the hobby for a long time, but because of the passing of his friend, it really motivated him to join back in to the role playing hobby. So the conversation we had was wonderful, and I feel like I've gained a new friend out of it because we had some similar situations, and I just wanted to talk about uh, reflecting on the people, reflecting on the reasons that you became a fan of tabletop role playing and the hobby of storytelling and role playing as a whole. So thought I would share with you some of the influences that were given to me, some of the influences that really pushed me into the hobby and the community and into doing this kind of thing today. And I'm hoping to start a conversation. So if you want to drop a note in right now while we're talking, we can chat about that. You can also leave a note in the description down below or in the comments down below, and tell me about your influences. Tell me about the people that brought you into the hobby. For me, it was a couple of different stages of development. When I was early, maybe the end of middle school, beginning of high school, a cousin of mine's, a friend of his, introduced us to Heroes Unlimited by Palladium Books. And being a big fan of comic books at the time, now I lived in a remote location. I lived in a northern Michigan, 17 miles from the nearest town, and so during the summers I would visit my family in southern Michigan, and so that's I had access to comic books and some fantasy novels, but as a whole, I didn't really. There was no role playing community that I knew of at the time, and we're talking like late '80s, early '90s. So uh, he, I was introduced. His name was Kyle. He introduced us to Heroes Unlimited, which I was a mind blowing experience for me. It really changed my outlook. I loved storytelling. I loved reading. I loved comic books. I loved that medium of storytelling. Once I was introduced to role playing games, especially Heroes Unlimited, and we did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, as well as Ninjas and Super Spies. That was my first foray into it. I was instantly hooked. I instantly knew that this was something I wanted to do for a very long time, and I wanted to get more involved, and I wanted to learn more about this hobby. And in doing so, uh, after that summer was over, I came back home. I began to try to work up my own ideas of role playing. Again, I didn't really have access to anything Palladium at that point up here in northern Michigan. It was just not, just wasn't a thing at that point. Um, uh, and then the following summer, we tried Rifts, and Rifts again expanded my idea. It opened up the possibilities for me to realize that you can play a role playing game that sort of mashes every genre together and works well. So coming back home after that second summer, at a Walden Books in a mall, I actually discovered Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, and that was being a fan of fantasy, and I had heard of Dungeons and Dragons before. I'd watched the cartoon. My uncle had talked about his little minor forays into playing earlier editions of D&D, and I remember $20. I purchased the player's handbook. I was hooked. I began to read everything. In fact, AD&D Second Edition, the player's handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide was the reason that I went on to study history in college, because of those little blue call-out boxes. And you've heard me talk about this before on the channel, but it wasn't. While I was a fan of the games, while I was a fan of the medium of role playing and storytelling in that aspect, um, it wasn't till I went to college that it really unlocked for me, and it became a sort of lifelong passion for me. Um, I met a guy who became a very dear friend, who became almost a brother to me, named Wesley Gear. When we first met him, we thought he was a bit strange. We thought he was a bit odd. It wasn't one of those people we thought we would ever sort of hang out with, and that changed. Wes and I got to know each other very, very well, and we bonded over our shared love of D&D and of storytelling and of role playing. And it was Wes that really opened my mind to what role playing can be, what world building can be, what storytelling and narrative storytelling can be in the medium of a tabletop role playing game. So before that, I've been a fan of the possibilities of how this all worked, and I was excited to find out more. But it was really at those times with Wes that those experiences really brought to the forefront the idea that this is something I wanted to do, or at least interact with the rest of my life. And so it sort of spiraled from there. Unfortunately, several years ago, we lost Wes to cancer. He was, I want to say, 33 years old when he passed. So that was a big blow to me. And to try to honor his memory, to try to do something to show my appreciation for the things that he had done for me, I put up together an event called Gaming for a Cure, and it was one of those situations where I thought I would probably do one event, and what I wanted to do was charge $5 at the door. You could get in and play whatever games you wanted all day long, and we would take the $5 donations at the end of the day and give them to the American Cancer Society. So I talked to the woman at the American Cancer Society. She said this was a great idea. She actually showed up and stayed for the event. That day we raised $75, and at the end of the day, I was exhausted. We played a lot of games, done a lot of talking and chatting and sharing, and I thought that was going to be the last event. I was just going to be a one and done for me kind of thing. But the next day, I got so many phone calls and emails and text messages about when the next event was going to be, because the people who were there really, really enjoyed it, or people who weren't there and had missed it really wanted to partake in something like that. So the event went from being a one shot to a once a year, an annual event, and eventually it became a 3 events a year. So it really snowballed into this thing, and I gained a band of volunteers who helped me out, who helped me schedule events and put things together. We teamed up with the local comic book convention called the Cherry Capital Con, or Cherry Capital Comic Con, which we're still involved with every year. And it was a wonderful experience. We did that for, I want to say, like 9 years, something like that. But I got to a point doing that I just, not that I lost passion for the hobby, or I lost passion for trying to help people, or I just lost my ability to come up with new ideas. I felt like I just didn't want to drag the event down because it was something that I didn't know, I didn't have any fresh ideas for. So Charlie Stout, who was my lead volunteer, we sat down one night and we just talked about the fact that I didn't want to see Gaming for a Cure fade away into obscurity, but I just didn't feel like I could be the figurehead for that anymore. And so he graciously took over Gaming for a Cure and made it what it is. It's even bigger and better than it was when I was in charge. It's an amazing program. If you're ever in northern Michigan, check out their Facebook page. They're always posting stuff about events. They do 3 events a year still. And I just, if you ever get a chance to be up here when one of those events are going on, it's definitely worth checking out. It's way better now than it ever was when I was leading it. After that, though, because of Wes, and because of the events of Gaming for a Cure, and because of this sort of love for the hobby that was instilled in me, I became very depressed, and I felt very out of touch, and I wanted to do something with the hobby and continue to grow in the community. So I was actually a pro. It was one of those weird moments that you knew um, it was meant to be. Something was meant to happen. So I was approached by a few blokes, a few friends, people that would become good friends, about running a YouTube live streaming Twitch kind of thing, very similar to Critical Role. Well, it didn't pan out, but I'd already set up the YouTube channel. I'd already commissioned the Questwise logo and artwork, and so I sat down after that kind of fell through. I sat down. If you can watch my first video, if you go back in the archives, and it's horrible. It was terrible. But I sat down with my phone and I said, "Hey, I'm Questwise. We're going to talk about role playing games. Please come along." And now you have. We're the channel is exploding. The channel is growing every single day, and it's humbling to me that people would want to listen to me ramble on about role playing games. But it has really become a lifelong passion for me. And it's because of those people that were in my life that really instilled that love for me. And and I think the point I want to get across today is that we are a community. And it's very, very rare that anybody ever comes to the role playing hobby without that sort of support from other people. And for me, it was initially Kyle, who taught me, or showed me role playing games in its, for the first time ever in my life. I was probably 14 years old. Um, and then it was Wes who really opened my eyes to what role playing and world building could be, and the fun that you can have with it, and the people that are involved. And in fact, very first time I ever went to Gen Con was with Wes, and it was a few years before he passed away that we went. And again, opened my eyes to the bigger world, the community of role playing fans and tabletop role playing games, and the plethora of different games that are out there. Right, not just D&D. It's not just Palladium. There are hundreds of different role playing games on the market. So it's about community, and it's about people, and it's about the shared love of this hobby and how those communities can grow. And I've been very lucky to see communities of role players grow. First through gaming for a cure and that situation, that event that I ran, and then now through this YouTube channel. And I've met some amazing people. And like I said, and I don't want to call out any names because I don't, I don't know if this person wants their name shared, but this viewer who's now become a good friend of mine shared with me a story that was very similar to mine in that his friend, who had been very active in the role playing scene, playing things like Rifts and other Palladium games, had passed away, and it was an eye opening experience for him. That was the love, the bond that they shared, and it can be a very powerful bond. It can be a very powerful bond of friendship. Wes and I, we bonded and we shared a lot of things over role playing, but our relationship, our friendship became much deeper than that. And it went beyond the scope of just role playing games, but that was our sort of core common bond that we shared. So please share down in the comments below. Tell me, who it was that influenced you? Who was it that inspired you into this hobby and your love of this community and this hobby and these games, and what games they were? Tell me what was your first game? For me, it was Heroes Unlimited and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ninjas and Super Spies. Um, those are my first games, but I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your initial game was. Who was the person who brought you into the hobby, and how that came to be. And also, like I said, today is a weird live streaming day, and I'm just trying this out to see if it's something that's viable for the channel or not. If you enjoy it, or if you don't enjoy it, let me know in the comments down below, and based on that, I will do more or less of these. Um, it's kind of fun. I'm kind of enjoying being in a different location in the living room as opposed to in the studio with the bookshelves. But at the same time, it's kind of I'm winging it. I'm just kind of free falling with this kind of thing. Where I'm recording a review or a video, it's a little bit more structured and a little bit more controlled. But let me know what you think. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Questwise, and till next time, stay safe and game on.